Good afternoon. It's Thursday, 3 p.m., and it's time for you to be adrenalized. That's right, folks. It's time to get that blood flowing and get re-energized. Why? Because you're here, you're alive, and it's time to be motivated for this new year. All right, Happy New Year, everyone. Wow, can't believe it. 2022 is here. Boy, that 2021 just seemed like it just went so fast. And we're into 2022. There's a lot of twos in this year. So hopefully if 2 is your lucky number, brings you a lot of good luck. So hello, everyone. Welcome to the Tom Marino Show. I'm your host, life and executive coach, Tom Marino. Thank you so much for tuning in as usual. And I hope that you are having a great start to your new year thus far. I hope that you've also kept some of your New Year's resolutions 5 days into the new year, right? You know, it's very hard to keep a New Year's resolution. It was funny, last week we talked about 46% of people who make New Year's resolutions actually are successful in keeping their New Year's resolutions past 6 months. And if you don't make any New Year's resolutions, well, you know, you're kind of out of luck there. So, you know, remember, just keep things simple this year. You know, just do things, just decide to do one thing differently. You don't have to do a lot of things differently. I always say, keep it simple. Because when we make things complicated, we don't accomplish the things that we set out to accomplish. So just keep it simple. Don't do too much. One little thing can be life-changing. As I talk about all the time, especially in my book, change is incremental. Just do one thing at a time. So, you know, and I hear myself saying that a lot these days, you know, keep it simple. I especially say it when I'm working with my young professionals. You know, when we're in our 20s and our 30s, if you're in your 20s and 30s and you're listening to this, there's a lot of ambition that you have and a lot of goals that you're eager to accomplish. And it's very different than someone, you know, in their 40s like I am and somebody in their 50s. We have different sets of ambitions, different goals, and we've learned to keep it simple. So I know that I hear myself saying this often to the younger professionals that I work with. And, you know, don't overcomplicate it. And this is one of the reasons why I co-founded a mastermind group for young professionals with my friend Will Newhart. And I'm very excited. I am so excited that Will is going to be the first guest on this show. So without further ado, I want to welcome my friend Will to the show. Will, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Tom. That's good.
All right. Are you excited for this new year, Will?
Very much so. Looking forward to it. I fall into that category as still young with much ambition. So there are many things on my to-do list for 2022.
That's awesome. I love having a good to-do list, right? There's nothing like having that set of priorities. So Will, before we get into the mastermind, I want you to just tell us a little bit about yourself, and I'll give you the floor for a minute.
Sure. So I'm from the West Coast. I grew up in Northern California near San Francisco. So it's probably no surprise to your listeners that my professional background is primarily in tech, but I have worked all over the world in various occupations. One of my fundamental beliefs is that we should all try to leave the world in a better place than how we found it. So when I turned 30, I decided that I needed to put my beliefs into action, and I started Newhart Academy, which teaches life skills to high school students.
That is awesome, Will. You know, when it's so great to hear someone say the assumption of, I'm in California, I must be in the tech world. You know, it's funny. I have a client right now that's in Silicon Valley, and you know, it's like everybody in the tech world I gravitate to in some way, you know, being a transformation person. You know, we talk about digital transformation, we talk about all different types, and technology is such an important part of that. And that's just funny the way you said, you know, the assumption kind of is I'm in the tech world. But for those of you who are just tuning in, we've just got ourselves started here on our first episode of this new year, and we're talking to my friend Will Newhart, who is the co-founder of our mastermind that we started last year. And Will is founded Newhart Academy, which teaches life skills to young people. Will, what's the mission of Newhart Academy?
Sure. So the immediate mission of Newhart Academy is to imbue high school students with the essential social, financial, and professional skills needed to succeed in life. But the high-level strategic goal for me is to use the Academy as a proof of concept for life skills education so that I can lobby to have life skills classes adopted by the California public school system.
That's awesome. Giving people those fundamental skills is just so essential, and it's awesome that you're doing that. How do we reach you at Newhart Academy?
If anyone wanted to find out more, you can email me directly at will@newhartacademy.com or visit the website newhartacademy.com, and that's heart spelled Hart.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So please check it out, newhartacademy.com, and reach out to Will, especially if you have a high school student that's struggling to make some adjustments and you're a little concerned that they don't have some of the skills that they need to go out into the world, especially if they're a senior in high school. We always see that transition from senior year to freshman year of college as a major life skills development year, right? And
absolutely.
I remember when we first started talking about when we had linked up on LinkedIn, and this is the beauty of networking on LinkedIn. We had talked about how you worked with young people, and I was working with a lot of people in their late 20s, and we just found this synergy to say, why don't we figure out a way to help people? And that's kind of what we developed to create the mastermind that we co-founded. So, the mastermind is called Metamorphosis Mastermind. And Will and I started this last year. I believe it was January that we launched the first cohort. Will, what was our mission like from the beginning? What did we say we wanted to really do?
Sure. I mean, the original mission when we came up with the idea of the mastermind was to help people in their 20s and 30s construct a successful career and a balanced life. And I think like any project, that evolved as it was put into practice. And so I think at the end, we really ended up helping our members understand the reasons that they crave change and then what types of change would be most rewarding for them on an individual level.
Yeah, and I remember that first night that we did it. I was nervous, to be honest. It was a new experience for both of us. You were awesome. We had never really worked together, but it was such a great opportunity for us to begin a working relationship. And I remember we figured out very quickly how to read each other's cues, which were basically, Tom is going to go off on tangents and Will's going to reel him back in. And it was quite fun. And you still do that.
Improv at its finest, I'm sure. Yeah,
absolutely. That's what made it so awesome is that we work so well together. But it's so important that we make sure that we are helping people, right? That's both of our purposes in life, is to really serve other people. But who do we really want to be part of this mastermind? Who is this really for?
Sure. Well, for it to be most effective for someone who's interested in this, I think the mastermind is for anyone who wants to connect with other people who are proactive in working towards their personal development goals. And someone who is open to listening more than speaking. That doesn't mean don't talk, but it just means be receptive to listening to others as well, and willing to be vulnerable in a group. That's the kind of person who will get the most out of this kind of mastermind session that we have put together.
Yeah, and it's really, to your point, like listening is such a big part of it, because it's really about building a community of change and helping each other through your experiences to learn from others. That's what masterminds are really about, is learning from other people's experiences. And it's been fun what we've covered so far. And we've covered a ton of topics. And we've talked about like writing your narrative and understanding, the different influences that influence your life and ours. I've talked about that a couple weeks ago on the show, where, it's so important that we pay attention to what is influencing us and what's getting in our way, right, in writing our personal narrative. And, we also talked about the saboteurs, which I mentioned on the show a couple of weeks ago too. And we've covered a few other topics. But before we talk about what we've covered so far, we're going to take a quick commercial break. And for those of you that are just listening, we're talking to Will Newhart from Newhart Academy. He and I co-facilitate a mastermind. And when we come back from the break, we're going to talk more about that. We'll be right back, and we'll see you soon. And welcome Welcome back to the Tom Marino Show. I'm your host, Tom Marino, life and executive coach. And today we're talking with my good friend, Will Newhart from Newhart Academy. That's newhartacademy.com if you want to find out more about him. He does a lot of great stuff with young people in developing essential life skills. And we've been talking about the mastermind that he and I co-founded last year. And we were, before the break, we started talking about the different topics we covered so far in the mastermind. And again, it's for young people young professionals, and really anyone who's seeking a community of change to, develop professionally. And before the break, we said we were talking about the different narratives that we help people to write and talking about these saboteurs. And Will, what have been some of the other topics that we've covered so far?
Well, the ones that would jump out to me are, we spent a lot of time talking about effective goal setting and accountability for ourselves, building confidence in various situations, establishing and maintaining boundaries, both with ourselves and others, how to have difficult conversations, kind of going hand in hand with that previous category. Yep. And then talking about fear and procrastination and how those two are often linked together.
Yeah, fear and procrastination is always a big one, right? Procrastination is always linked very closely to a fear of either success or fear of failure and being perfect, right? A lot of people delay doing things because they don't feel like they can do it perfectly, so why do it at all? And for those of you who have set New Year's resolutions and you're procrastinating on them already 5 days into the new year, think about, is it a realistic goal for you, right? So Will, what have we really accomplished so far with the mastermind? What are the things that we've seen come about so far?
When we wrap things up with at the end of last year, I think what we did is we helped a set of people vocalize and acknowledge the current challenges they face. And more importantly, I think we helped them identify why those challenges existed for them on an individual basis. In addition, the part that I really enjoyed as kind of an additional benefit is we created an environment of trust and camaraderie with relative strangers, right. Which was such a fun journey to be a part of, to see at the first session, everyone sort of getting a feel for each other. And then by the end, being very open and sharing a lot with each other about our lives.
Yeah, I think that's such an interesting point. We've really seen such a breakdown of people's barriers and some of their obstacles that get in the way. A lot of the topics that we talked about, they're very interrelated, right? Building confidence has a lot to do with, feeling confident about yourself, but also breaking down some of those fears and getting rid of some of those barriers that stop you from feeling confident, right? We've talked a lot about social media, right? And the influences of social media on what we do. And, everybody is so heavily influenced by those aspects, and seeing people being able to recognize that has been really powerful. We've had some really breakthrough moments. And, one of the fun things we've done too is we've done these breakout groups and we've done these breakout sessions. And, you and I split the group into two, and it's always fun what comes out of that. But what do you see differently in people when they're in the smaller groups versus the larger groups? Because I think that's a big part of the experience too.
Well, I think the beauty of the breakout room is it allows us to, or allows people to expand a little bit more in communicating how they're feeling or their opinions, because it becomes a conversation with just 3 people instead of a group with 6. So as I mentioned earlier, when it comes to listening, there's just more opportunities for participation with people. And then I think from that, we always come back to the larger group and share our learnings. And so that's also interesting to see, based on who's in your group, where the conversation tends to navigate. And often they end up in different places, which I think is actually really cool, because it just shows how the breadth of subjects that we're talking about, and how they're very multifaceted in the ways that you can think about and discuss them.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. We may be asking the same question of people at times, and it's so interesting to get the very different perspectives and where people wind up, and that is really what I think a mastermind is really all about, because it is about listening to other people's perspectives. It's being able to take a response to a question that we've asked and interpreting it so differently that it sheds a whole new light on what the situation may be like for you, right? I mean, it's interesting too, because we have such a variety of people in this group, right? We have single people, we have married people, we have people who have had some start to a different profession and now we're transitioning to other types of professions. And I remember, talking with one of our people who's getting ready to get married, right? And it was so great to hear, like, she was having some obstacles around, navigating the future in-laws and all of that. And it was great to see the married people in the group bring that fresh perspective, right? And even as a single person, I remember you brought some fresh perspective to that. And, that's what's fun about all of this is really building on top of what people say or what people have experienced to really feel fuller and to give the whole group a different experience of what that person is going through. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, that exposure to people with drastically different life paths has been one of the things that has been my biggest takeaway as a facilitator, because it was definitely driven home for me that how I understand and view situations and process information can be remarkably different than another person. I remember a specific example where I was explaining how I would communicate a certain topic based in how I thought I was communicating was logical and efficient communication, meant to save the other person time, so I was doing them a favor. But then it was communicated back to me that someone could interpret that as very cold and uncaring.
Right.
Without the proper context. So that really made me pause and say, oh yeah, that's right. Like, not everyone is looking at the situation through the same lens and applying the same criteria. So
exactly. And that really was a fun experience too, when we talked about, budgeting and financing and stuff like that. We, one of the things that was requested by the group was to talk about building their finances and building their budget, a very essential life skill that, we don't always get going into adulthood, that, for the first time, like the first time you really ever look at some kind of a budget is when you enter college, when you leave at 18 and you go to college and you're understanding, what you have to pay. You have to pay rent, you got to pay for food, you got to allocate money for certain things. And that was a fun experience to hear people's different perspectives on it. And I remember you and I had very drastic, I love the way you live your life, right? Tell our listeners a little bit about what, how, and because your perspective is so refreshing around this. Like, right now, where are you, first of all?
Well, we're doing this interview. I'm in Argentina.
Right.
I am down here for the holidays. I'm visiting my partner. And so to Tom's point, I think you're getting at, I live a very mobile life. So I move around a lot, and I'm lucky enough to be able to work remotely. So those two are able to go hand in hand. But I'm someone who doesn't want to have children. And so that opens a very large door for me in terms of what I can spend my time doing. And I think that, to your point, then lends a very different perspective on life, money, that could potentially help or just serve as a contrast to someone who is wanting different things in their life, but maybe didn't think about them because everyone else around them wants the same thing. Right,
exactly. And that's exactly the point. Will, I can't believe it. We're good for today. It went so fast. Thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate you so much, my friend.
Well, the feeling is mutual, Tom. Thank you so much for having me on, and I hope we get to do this again sometime in the future.
We've been speaking with Will Newhart, the founder of Newhart Academy. Visit his website at newhartacademy.com. And listen, I want to hear from you, okay? I want you to go to tommarino.com/radio and leave a comment. That's tommarino.com/radio. If you want to find out more about our mastermind, we can give you some information. If you fill out that contact form, we'll set up a call for you. If you're in your late 20s, early 30s, and you're struggling with some of the life essentials, Will and I are here to help. So go to tommarino.com. Send me any questions that you have. There's a little spot at the bottom of that page to fill out a form to leave some questions. And if you're desiring some change in your life, fill out the contact form and we'll schedule a complimentary session, and let's see how we can work together to adrenalize you. Thank you for tuning in. Happy New Year once again. Stay on those resolutions. Keep it moving. This is Tom Marino reminding you to choose your adrenalized life.
No offense to you, don't waste your time. Here's why. Because I'm happy. No offense to you, don't waste your time. Here's why.